At town halls and rallies, protests erupt. Welcome to Law and Society. Please subscribe and let's talk about this. So, the American people are rising up. The American people are going to town halls in red districts and confronting their Republican representatives, so much so that Republican representatives are choosing not to go to their own town hall meetings to talk about their constituency's needs because it is clear that the GOP does not care about the constituents' needs. They care about keeping power. They care about political games. They care about, owning the libs. They care about, making excuses for something that is bigoted and racist and xenophobic. But they don't govern. They don't, they don't actually get the things done that they promise that they're going to get done, like lower the cost of living, lower gasoline, lower food prices, and being able to live in a society that is stable, politically stable, economically, and stable in a way that it can progress forward instead of stall and go back. I recently saw a political cartoon where it was a race, and all these advanced countries the races are facing this way, and America has its racer facing the other way. And so, we're effectively going backwards. And as a result of that, we are seeing towns and rural areas being overwhelmed in the town halls. And then there are protests in front of Tesla dealerships. Mind you, I'm not talking about the vandalism at the Tesla dealerships. Peaceful protest is an American right. Vandalism is a crime. And Pam Bondi calling it domestic terrorism is a hyperbole. So find the vandals and hold them accountable and be upfront about protesting on public property. Assert your right to protest. And unless there are restrictions on protest in that area implemented by the government of that locality, you have a right to peaceably protest there. So, I think that the American people are slowly understanding that Donald Trump is not going to keep his promises. And they're slowly coming to an understanding of the urgency of the moment because they are now worried about whether they're going to get their Social Security checks, whether they're going to get their Medicaid, Medicare benefits. And because that is a huge part of a lot of American lives. And if any one of those things go away, it puts pressure on the families of those who are under these programs, these safety net programs, that will go away. And then the economic pressure, psychological pressure of, taking care of your elders will become an existential dread for Americans because they have to take care of their parents and their grandparents in a system where the system is designed to help aging parents and grandparents so they can help make ends meet for themselves, live in dignity, have liberty. And they're realizing, Americans are realizing, as Department of Education shuts down, as Social Security Administration is gutted, as health research is stopped at the National Institute of Health, as there are outbreaks around the country of measles, while you have the Secretary of Health and Human Services going around spreading disinformation after saying, oh, okay, you can, vaccines are also available, but so is cod liver oil. Like, come on, Bobby, do better. So I think that people are coming to a moment where they can see the crisis coming in their direction and there's nothing to stop it. And that's why I believe that civic engagement is important and central right now. And what Bernie Sanders and AOC and Jasmine Crockett and Chris Murphy and Greg Kazar and Cory Booker, all these people are coming out and talking. Follow their lead, follow AOC, follow Bernie Sanders and what he's saying of his simple message that is drawing thousands and thousands of people in red districts, in red states. Because the message is simple. You solve the problem by taxing the rich. You solve the problem by having a living wage. You solve the problem by having affordable housing. You solve the problem by having affordable health care. You solve the problem by having an immigration system that doesn't dehumanize people. And I think that that is important for us evermore. Because our founding fathers lived in communities that were heavily engaged in political discourse. Partly because there wasn't much else other than farming and other certain disciplines of agriculture, some sciences, and then some humanities. It wasn't so varied. We weren't so distracted by so many things all around us. Civic engagement was boisterous and it was involved and it was close-knitted and ideologies flowed through the communities. Many people today, however, walk away from political talk because they think that it is tired, jaded, and, corrupt. And they're not wrong. Politics is tired and it's jaded and it's corrupt. But that's not reason to walk away from it. In fact, quite the opposite. We have to walk towards the disaster to help recover and rebuild. The time of running from our fates is over. We have to take the responsibility on our shoulders of writing to our representatives, going to these town halls, protesting when and where it is necessary and proper, and following the laws and peaceably protesting. If you want to also do civic disobedience of strikes, those are also effective. And I'm not going to rule out strikes happening all around the country once the pinch of the tariffs and the layoffs all start to build up. So, kind of transition to the second part where people keep talking about constitutional crisis. And you've heard me talk about constitutional crisis. Well, constitutional crisis for a 248-year-old democracy doesn't happen in one fell swoop, or doesn't happen as quickly or as decisively as you would see in a place like South Korea that has not been a democracy for more than 50 or 60 years. So, maybe even less. No, I think about that. But the point is, we are yes and no on the constitutional crisis. Yes and no, because on one side, there is the judiciary holding Donald Trump at bay, but on the other side, the MAGA party has chosen to cede Congress's massive powers of controlling spending and creating laws, and they have just laid down and complied with Donald Trump, withholding money, dismantling departments of the government that Congress enacted into law and into existence. So that is a constitutional crisis. But on the judiciary side, the courts are holding. So much so that Chief Justice Roberts made a comment about the right proper way of going about it is not impeachment, but appeal. But there is a political solution if we did have a functional Congress, and that would be impeachment. Because dozens of things that Donald Trump has done from the time that he took office just over 2 months ago are impeachable. His undoing of departments of our government is impeachable. They are offenses that are political in nature, that go beyond the powers of the presidency and usurps Congress. And Congress's answer in a functional democracy is that impeachment and removal. But that's not happening. That's not going to happen. So and Donald Trump has Trump the United States behind him with the immunity that gives him even more, emboldens him even more to do what he wants to do and defy the separation of powers and the checks and balances that lie between Congress and the executive. And there's nothing to stop Donald Trump from saying that he's not going to defy a SCOTUS order. He said many times he's going to comply with the courts, and in a lot of instances they are. But there are like dozens and dozens of non-violent immigrants, some of whom were in the process of seeking asylum, who are now sitting in a prison in El Salvador, a mega prison in El Salvador, without due process of law. And that is also because Donald Trump defied, and Donald Trump's people defied the court order. Either way, I believe that these should be brought back and due process should be had before they are taken or sent to their next destination. With a lot of them, it'll be the United States because they are seeking asylum. They are refugees, unless Donald Trump does away with all of those. Those are also laws, and Congress just lets him. So you realize with this, all of this comes other crises as well, like economic, health, and safety, all come with the constitutional crises that are coming our way. If HHS is not well equipped to deal with health and human services, if NIH isn't doing the research that that FDA and CDC need to come up with new drugs, if the schools are not funded so that every child has a good education and at least 1 square meal a day, these things will impact our economy. The weight of not having Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid will fall on the children of the people who get these earned benefits, these constitutionally mandated benefits, because they are law of the land, made by Congress. They are tantamount to the Constitution. And Donald Trump is unfaithfully violating them or simply not enforcing them and executing the laws that he's bound to by his oath in office. So I leave you with this, and I want to sort of end with something more calming. You know, when I was a kid and I lived with my mom and my stepdad, they're affluent people. They took us on vacations. And so one vacation we went to Hawaii. And I remember that in Hawaii, there was this beach that we went to. It was a black sand beach that was cut out of a nook of the cliffs. So on both sides, there were these huge sheer cliffs. And there was this walkway from the road, and you come down through the thick of the jungle, and you come into this small beach. And what's unique about this beach was that because there were sheer cliffs on both sides, when the waves came, they were hitting the sheer cliffs, and they were coming at that cul-de-sac of a beach in 20-foot waves that would then recede again. And as I see and so I would stand, I remember standing there on the beach where once the wave pulled back, the water was to my knees, or was to my ankles. And I would see it go back, and then I would see it again coming as if it's going to hit the cliff. But no, it's going to hit me because the cliff there has been worn down by the water. So what I could do was simply look at the wave, and when the wave was coming, this 20-foot wave coming in my direction, where there's now 2 feet of water, I would have to prepare if I wanted to swim and fly at the same time to see where that wave was, and then just start running towards the beach when the wave hit. And when I look at the crises that we are dealing with now, I feel like that kid standing in that beach with my feet burrowed in the black sand, and me just looking in awe and in a certain sense of dread, this wall of water coming in my direction. And that's how I feel when I see where we are as a country today. And there's this necessary to be prepared, necessary for you to be prepared for the worst and expect the best. And it is important for us to observe, conserve, exercise restraint, and still be courageous enough to go out there and protest, or write and protest, or speak and digitally protest. Whatever it is that you can do, please do so. And listen to so many great experts who are speaking truth to power about what is happening and what is coming in our direction. With that said, thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you soon. Please remember to like and subscribe and share. Ta-ta.